Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of War Against Crime, the late 40s EC comic. We're up to number 5 here, and once again we got a Johnny Craig cover, but it looks like Johnny Craig is learning his lesson and making more dramatic covers. This is a pretty nice design here. I like this with the catwalk, the fire escape, and the central figure, very prominent. Definitely more dynamic than the covers he's been serving up to us. Once again, Johnny Craig takes the first story spot, Little Miss Mob Marker. And we can see Johnny Craig's art is definitely becoming more distinctive, turning into the Johnny Craig that we all know and love. He's still a little like trying to be more illustrative, like the way he draws hair here. But pretty soon, in a year or two, Johnny Craig's going to have a very stripped down, very kind of elegant, if you will, line. Very kind of slick. So we're watching Johnny Craig kind of progress and evolve. I like this splash page. So I guess this woman, Betty Zalman, she worked hard behind a counter at a store. She had a good job, but she wanted more in her life and she wanted it faster. So every night, she gets all dolled up and she goes out preying on men, on rich men. She kind of seduces them or, preys on their kindness, does all these little scams and to get their money. That's a nice panel there. Some good illustration. So we see her pulling her various scams on all these marks. But one day she tries to pull her shit on this guy. And it turns out he's Happy Gordon. He's the head of the rackets. And she's terrified. She's like, oh shit, I'm dead. But he's basically like, I like your moxie, kid. I think we should work together. You want to get in on the big money with me? And she's like, do I? So she starts working for him, and she becomes what is known as a mob marker. She basically goes ahead on a job, the day before, and she cases the joint, figures out when the most guards are working at the bank, or figures out a combination on a safe, and then calls up Happy and his boys, and they can do better robberies. So we see her applying her trade. She's at this bank, figuring out what the most guys are working. I like this panel here. She looks like Marlene Dietrich or something. And then we see the boys pull these crimes. She has various techniques. She's really good at her job because, she's beautiful. She's well-dressed, so she has lots of access to places. And she's also very good at observing. So she's very good at her job. The money's rolling in. This panel here is another example of this is the Johnny Craig that we're going to see in a year or two a lot more of. I love this panel here. This is another thing Johnny Craig was great at, doing these almost symbolic panels, just to represent what's going on in the story. So we see just these waves of money and these two guns, just the colors and the swoop of the money and the guns jutting out from the right. That's just, I don't know why, I just love this panel so much. Such a well-designed little panel. So eventually Betsy, let me double check on that. Betty gets tired of the racket. She's got enough money to last her lifetime. She just wants to settle down and enjoy her money. She's tired of risking her neck, So she realizes that Happy won't let her just go, He's not going to just let her quit. He'll hunt her down. So she's like, oh, but if he was in jail, or better yet, dead, then he wouldn't be able to, catch me. So she calls the cops and tips them off about the next job. So when these guys come to this big, this bank, and they at gunpoint ask the guard to open the vault, there's all these cops waiting inside the vault, like a whole legion of them. And they make short work of these mobsters, just gunning down all of them. I'm out of ammunition. I need bullets. If it's bullets you want, here you are, you murdering rat. And it looks like the only one who makes it out alive is Happy. And Happy takes off in this car. He's injured, but he can still drive. Then we cut away to Betty, miles away in a different city. And she's driving off to her new life, making all these plans about how she's going to spend her money. But then she gets a blowout. And so she's at the side of the road and she waves down this car. And wouldn't you know it, the first car that drives by, it's Happy. And he shoots her down dead. The cops find him a little while later. He's still alive. And one of them says, he's still alive. He'll pay his debt to society in the hot seat. That's where they all end, these so-called tough mugs. When will they ever catch wise? Good question. But we can still see that the story, the actual telling of the story, is still not quite there. Because even though EC had that kind of hackneyed formula where everything had to have a slight twist to the ending, it's definitely made it more interesting. These stories, just an incident will happen, there'll be a reaction, and then it just kind of ends cold. It's like, that's it? Okay, if you say so. But still, I kind of like reading these true crime stories, seeing all the little techniques these criminals use. So now we got young Graham Ingels up to bat here. Curse of the Pharaoh. So I guess this museum is showing off this emerald scarab of Tutma, Pharaoh of Egypt. So it looks like they're closing up for the day. And we see these two security guards and they're talking about how there's a curse on this emerald. Anyone who steals it comes to misfortune. Up in the office of the museum curator, the head of security is like, I gotta tell you, boss, I'm pretty sure I saw Fingers Sharp in the museum today, but I lost him in the crowd. And I guess Fingers Sharp is like the slickest jewel thief in the business. And the security guard says, I think I saw him going up to that Egyptian hall where the scarab is. But he disappeared. And he didn't see him leave the building, though, so he's a little worried. And the curator says, take it easy, Jim. You know, the scarab is locked up tight. It'll be fine. So then we go up to the Egyptian room and we see the sarcophagus lid opens, and it's Fingers. I guess he hid in there all day, waiting for the museum to close. So he finds the emerald and he works his magic. And he opens it up. But I guess he's not perfect. You know, nobody's perfect. So the alarm goes off. The curator and the museum detective run up there. They find the emerald missing. They see an open window and they're like, that's the only way it could have gotten out. But that's impossible. I mean, it's a sheer wall. But they don't call him Fingers for nothing. I guess his fingers are so strong, he's like rock climbing on this wall that most people couldn't even hold on to. And they start firing at him, shooting at him. And he's like, I gotta get out of here. I'm like a duck on a wall. There's some kind of expression with a duck. I can't remember what it is. I'm always curious when I read these reprints from the 90s is how closely they hew to the original color scheme. I almost think they do try to duplicate the colors as well as they can because they're so wonky and crazy. Like, look at this with the green and light purple. This is really odd. But this panel is crazy. I think these are supposed to be leaves on this tree, but they're just really zanily colored. It looks like stained glass or something. Very strange. So Fingers realizes he's got to get off this wall. He swings back into an open window at the museum and figures he'll elude them throughout the museum. He actually gets the drop on the two of those guys, knocks them out. And when they wake up, the more security guards show up. So they're going to search the museum top to bottom because he has to be in the museum. Once the alarm goes off, it locks all the doors automatically. So they can't find him anywhere. The last place, the only place he could be, is the incinerator here in the basement. And the museum detective, Jim, he kind of talks loudly. He says, it was that whoever, the curse of the scarab says that whoever steals it will be killed by fire. So I wonder what happens if I turn this incinerator on. And Fingers jumps out. He says, no, don't turn it on. I give up. But it's just a ruse. He grabs Jim's gun and they wrestle for it. And he gets the best of Jim and he shoots him right in the shoulder. And then he grabs the light switch and plunges the room into blackness. Look at this here. This Graham Ingels would always do this, even when he was the best horror artist of all time. Such a great artist. But it always has some weird little sloppy thing. Look how cross-eyed that guy is. But it almost makes his art even more creepy and weird, which works a lot better in the horror comics. In these crime comics, it was a little distracting. I was like, oh, what happened to this guy? All of a sudden he's cross-eyed. But it is a kind of one of his imperfections kind of made him a better cartoonist, I thought. But not in these early crime comics, not as much. But I kind of like this art. I got to say, it's you can definitely see Graham Ingels in a kind of an incipient, ghastly. So it's all dark, but the detective, Jim, just shoots into the darkness. And when they turn the lights back on, he actually hit Fingers. And they're like, how'd you do that? It was pitch black in here. He's like, I just looked for the little twinkle of the green scarab. And I aimed at it. So in one way or another, the curse of the scarab is fulfilled for the final time. That one at least had some nice chase scenes in it. Some good action. Letter page, short story, and then we got The Law's Revenge. And this is an interesting precursor to the new trend in EC. We got one of the earliest times we see that second person narration where they're talking to the reader. It says, this is it, Charles Handley, your last mile. I've been waiting for you a long time, Handley. A little longer than I have to wait for most chumps. But in a minute, you're going to sit down here, Handley, and my waiting will be over. So it's the electric chair is basically the narrator. Supposedly it's a true case, which I really doubt. But the real treat of the story is this is some really nice looking Al Feldstein art. I really like the way he draws in this. You can really see his Wolverton-esque-ness, which is obviously not a word. But I just think it looks great with the really sharp inking. Some of the panels, though, this panel makes me laugh. Look how tiny their heads are. It almost looks like Fletcher Hanks could have drawn this panel here. Pretty nutty. But some of the shading here, the stippling, looks like Jay Lynch to me. I almost see some kind of underground comics art in this. I mean, obviously vice versa. So I guess this guy Handley, he robs the payroll from the place where he works. And here's the guy who's in charge of the payroll. He holds him up. The guy refuses to give the money up. So Handley's got to kill him, shoot him. And he runs away thinking he's dead. That totally reminds me of Wolverton there, that face. Man, I just really dig this Feldstein art. So he drives far away. By nightfall, he's hundreds of miles away. When he turns on the radio, though, it turns out that guy didn't die as quick as he hoped. He wasn't quite dead. So he lived long enough to tell the cops who pulled the job. So this guy's on the lam. They give out his name on the radio. They give out his description. And he's like, God damn it, this sucks. So he's staying at this place. The landlady comes to talk to him. When he opens the door, she recognizes him from his description. She's like, you're Charles Handley. So he's got to rub her out. And he says, I don't want you going blabbing to the cops. And he chokes her to death. So he runs off. He finds this gas station. And he, at gunpoint, he takes the guy's car, the guy who works there. So this guy calls in the cops, tells him, describes his car, the make of it, and tells him he recognized Charles Hanley as well as the guy from the radio. So the cops are chasing him, and Charles does this really daring escape where he drives right in front of this train, and it cuts off the two cops chasing him. So he makes it. But he realizes that his car is going to give him away. So he drives it off of a bridge here, or pushes it off of a bridge, I should say. But then he thinks to himself, man, good thing I wasn't in that car. I'd be a dead duck for sure. Hey, that's a good idea. If they found me in that car, they'd stop looking for me. They'd think I was dead. So pretty soon a car comes by and he flags him down, pretending to be a stranded motorist. And when the guy looks over the bridge railing to look at the car, he hits him on the head, pushes him off the bridge. And it works. The next day in the newspaper, the headline says, Charles Hanley killed in auto accident. Search ends. He's all laughing to himself. They fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. But what he doesn't know is there's a know-it-all, smart aleck detective who doesn't accept the findings. He's questioning the fact that how did this body get outside the car? There's no doors open. The windows aren't smashed. He thinks he knows something's fishy. So he continues to investigate, but Charles thinks he's all safe and sound. He decides to do smaller jobs from now on, not to bring attention to himself. And we see him here committing some crimes. I really hate when they do this, like, just all one color. It just looks really dull. So I guess that detective, he figured it out. He tells his superior, he says, the same day that Hanley died, this guy went missing. There was a missing persons case. So I asked the wife to come in of that guy who's missing, and maybe she can identify the body. And he's totally right. The wife comes in and says, that's my Ralph. It's my husband. So they realize that Hanley's still alive, and the search continues for him. He doesn't know this at all, though. So he's robbing this place at night. And the alarm goes off. And when he runs out, it seems like he's surrounded on every side by cops. And they shoot him, and he wakes up in the hospital. And he's basically going to try to still pretend that he's not Charles Hanley. And the cops aren't buying it. And he says, Hanley's dead. He was killed in an auto accident. He's dead. And then when they tell him the jig is up, he says, no, I'm dead, I tell you, dead. Not too bright, this guy. What a moron. So he gets sentenced to death by the electric chair. And this last panel, we see a kind of shocking last panel here. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Pull the switch guard. Zzz. Man, I dig that art, though. So that's it for War Against Crime number 5. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at it. I'm kind of digging this, like slowly reading every issue and just slowly watching as these guys become the guys that were like responsible for some of the best comics ever made in comic book history. So we're slowly marching towards that, and you can definitely see it in this issue. I'm really excited to see the next, I believe, 6 issues we have left, watching it become more and more like EC's legendary new trend titles. So I guess that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.